Time for our CBS 21 Political Insiders to give us the insight into today's primary in Pennsylvania and around the country. We've got 4 states involved here. Tony May, our Democratic strategist, Charlie Giroux, the Republican strategist. Gentlemen, let's get started. We got Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Delaware. Let's start with the presidential campaign race. How do you feel it's shaping up, Tony?
Well, I mean, we're in coasting mode now. I mean, President Obama's job is to get some votes and to keep some visibility. And you've got Mitt Romney essentially unopposed now to keep on piling up those delegates and maybe find a way to make people like him.
Charlie, would there be any kind of surprise expected today?
The only place where there might be a surprise tonight is in Delaware, where Newt Gingrich has made a really concerted effort. Downstate Delaware, most of the population is upstate in Newcastle County, but there's a lot of support for Speaker Gingrich downstate. Probably not enough to let him carry the state, but maybe enough to let him do well tonight and have a narrative that goes forward. But Tony's right. Governor Romney's going to win the lion's share of delegates tonight. Certainly is going to win the primaries tonight, the beauty contest in the several states, right. And we march on towards Tampa.
Well, let me get your feelings on turnout then, because, you know, had some really bad weather out in western PA yesterday. And then with the loss of Santorum in this race, a lot of people said that would drop off interest. Tony, how do you feel? We'll start with you on turnout
Well,
today.
I think we've got some very critical, highly contested races at the statewide level, the Auditor General, certainly the Attorney General's race, and weather is going to play a factor, I think, in the Attorney General's race and also some of our congressional races. There's a big hot race in the Democratic side between Mark Kritz and Jason Altmaier in western Pennsylvania, both of them incumbents, redistricting, putting them in the same district, and a lot of snow.
Yeah, the weather just makes things worse.
And I was out at my poll today working very hard, and I can tell you, Rob, that here in central Pennsylvania, the turnout, at least up until this point, has been relatively depressed. So I hope that all the viewers of CBS 21 who haven't yet gotten out and done their civic duty will do so. I mean, this is the time to get out and exercise your vote.
There's plenty of time, and there aren't very many lines, you said. Quickly, let's talk a little bit about the race for the U.S. Senate seat that Bob Casey holds. There's a lot of Republicans in this race, Charlie. Any of them stand out particularly to you?
It, I think, boils down to a 3-person race. The 2 millionaires, one from the west, one from the east. Sam Rohrer, central Pennsylvania conservative. Tom Smith from western Pennsylvania. And Steve Welch, who has the party endorsement and hails from eastern Pennsylvania. I think it's a peanut scramble. It could be any one of those 3 in my judgment.
Tony, do you expect Vodvarka to beat Casey?
No, that's out of the... I'm still back here. I'm still back here with him calling his candidates nuts. They are former Democrats. I think that's a significant factor that
Welch and Smith are former
Welch
Democrats.
and Smith are former Democrats calling themselves conservatives. It's got to be a real puzzler for folks like Charlie to figure out who to vote for.
Well, I think that's why Sam Rohrer has a lot of support here in the mid-state, is because of the reason that Tony just stated. There was an interesting alignment this year where 2 former Democrats became Republicans. Steve Welch quite a bit of time ago. Tom Smith just recently made for some interesting back and forth between the 2 of them because they had a lot of money to spend in this race.
Hey, quickly, the AG's race. You know, the Attorney General's office has been in the spotlight a lot in this past year with the Jerry Sandusky thing and the political corruption cases. Who do you feel has got the best foot up there, Tony?
Well, you got on the Democratic side, you have a female prosecutor from Scranton versus a war hero and former congressman from southeastern Pennsylvania. It really depends, again, on turnout. If there can be a good turnout, or if there is a good turnout in southeastern Pennsylvania, I do believe that Pat Murphy can pull this out, even though Kathleen McGranahan Kane has been working very hard to persuade people that he's not an attorney.
Right. Charlie, I got a hard wrap. A quick word?
I think it's going to be a very interesting race in the fall. The Democrats have never won the Attorney General's office. I think they see this as their opportunity. They have 2 strong candidates, one of them I think more credible than the other, but Dave Freed, the Republican who you talked about earlier in the show, is, I think, a very formidable candidate in the fall. I know central Pennsylvania will come out big for Dave Freed. The question will be what happens in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Gentlemen, as usual, I enjoy the conversation. We'll see you again tonight on CBS 21 News Live at 11. By then, we'll have some results in, so we'll be able to flesh this out a little more. Charlie Giroux. Campaign 2012 in the Pennsylvania primary. We are back now, and we want to take a look at the races and get some analysis from our CBS 21 News political insiders. We turn to CBS 21's Charlie Giroux on the Republican side and Tony May on the Democratic side. They're joining us live tonight from Cumberland County. And gentlemen, it's been an interesting night as we've been analyzing some of these numbers. If we could start out with the surprise that we got in about Tim Holden, the longest serving member of Pennsylvania's Congress, and he's lost his re-election bid. Total surprise to you?
Well, it's not a total surprise because the polling going into today's election said that he was down in the polls. This is a totally new district for him to run in, and he has a strong conservative Democratic record, which for this new district was a little too conservative. The challenger really attacked him for being a blue dog Democrat, which cost him some vital votes.
Yeah, reapportionment won the seat for Tim Holden 10 years ago, and really it lost it for him tonight. New territory where he was unfamiliar and voters didn't know him as well, and the opportunity in a Democratic primary for somebody to outflank him to the left. A tough night for Tim Holden, who has served the area very, very well through the years.
Certainly has. Let's talk about the race for Bob Casey's Senate seat. Did you find anything surprising about that?
The outcome?
Well, the margin was surprising, Rob. The fact that Tom Smith won by as big a margin as he did and apparently left Steve Welch, the endorsed candidate, in third place, although I guess the numbers are still in flux there a little bit. Sam Ruhr simply didn't have the money to compete with Tom Smith, and the margin was, I think, a little bit of a surprise to voters, so it's going to be a very interesting contest in the fall.
Yeah, we saw that Smith ran a... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead and finish your thought, Tony.
Smith ran a very aggressive television campaign. It proves that the old-style politics using the mass media still works in Pennsylvania.
I've only got 30 seconds here, so let's quickly go to the presidential race. Mitt Romney came out and really started sort of a new campaign tonight, appearing to take over, essentially. Didn't he, Charlie?
Yeah, it sounded very much like an acceptance speech, a very well-written speech, and a very well-delivered speech. It's game on for the fall.
Tony, the president ready for that?
I think the president's very ready. I think there's going to be a real enthusiasm gap for the fall for the Republican Party. Can they really get out a vote, a really strong vote for their candidate?
You bet. Don't bet on an enthusiasm gap, Tony.
All right, gentlemen, I know you're busy tonight. Our CBS 21 News political insiders, Charlie Giroux and Tony May. Gentlemen, thank you both.